Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It's really good to see so many familiar faces and some new ones. For the ones who have not joined us before, the Luxembourg Mind is a platform that was created to promote Luxembourg as a hub for business, as a hub for talent, as a hub for investment. What we do is we bring some of the most prominent decision makers, the folks influencing and shaping life in Luxembourg, and pair them with the sharpest minds in Luxembourg, which is you folks. Speaking of the sharpest minds, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to members and representatives from Bocconi, the British Luxembourg Society, I see Dan in the back there, Cambridge, the Chartered Alternative Investment Association of Luxembourg, CAIA, the CFA Society of Luxembourg, which is the biggest body of representation here today, EFPA, the European Financial Planning Association of Luxembourg, the Alumni Associations of Harvard, HEC Paris, INSEAD, London Business School, London School of Economics, Sacred Heart, you see Science somewhere, Sciences Po, University of Luxembourg, Women in STEM, and many more. Your presence reflects the diversity and intellectual strength that Luxembourg is fortunate to draw upon. So thank you all for coming. Let me walk you guys through the schedule a little bit, and then we can kick off. So we will start off with opening words from our Vice Prime Minister, Xavier Bettel, before Dariush, the partner from PwC, will set the stage for the rest of the conversation in the evening, bridging the conversation between the political side of things and the business side of things. From there on, Maria will help me moderate a panel discussion where we have 3 industry experts coming in to talk to us about the impacts of the geopolitical environment on Luxembourg. And then we will hand over to Q&A, which Yonggi is going to lead. Speaking of Q&A, there's a QR code on the screen. At any point in time, feel free to scan that. If you have a question, put it into the QR code, and Yonggi will curate that for us. After Q&A, we will wrap up and then continue the discussion upstairs at networking cocktails. Does that sound okay? Yes. Great. So I guess we're good to kick off then. So last year's symposium, it focused on a basic understanding of how global power shifts are affecting Luxembourg. So this year, we're going to try to continue building upon that foundation, but shift from analysis to action. To open the evening, we are honored to have the Honorable Vice Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs, Xavier Bettel, returning virtually to deliver the opening address. Last year, his framing set the tone for the whole conversation. This year, his perspective is even more essential as the global geopolitical environment grows more complex and decisions made at the diplomatic level shape the operating environment for businesses here in Luxembourg. With that, it's my pleasure to invite virtually the Vice Prime Minister, Xavier Bettel, to deliver his opening words. Over to you, David.
Dear friends, I'm so sorry not being able to be here today with you. I'm in the West Coast. But we all agree that the world is facing challenges from many sides. We see war again in Europe with Russia's attack on Ukraine. We see suffering and increasing polarization in the Middle East, our immediate neighbors. There is growing instability in the global trading system, and we face the climate crisis, which affects every country and demands urgent action. In this more transactional and competitive world, pragmatism is often necessary. But we must not forget our core values, the values that since the end of the Second World War have brought peace, stability and cooperation to Europe. It is in this combination of practical decision-making and strong belief in a rules-based international order that has shaped Luxembourg's identity and role in the world. Luxembourg has consistently defended the principles of multilateralism and human rights, and we continue to do so today. As European capital, we have always supported the internal market, European integration, and stronger cooperation between states. Benelux, for example, was one of the first testing grounds for cross-border collaboration, long before it became a European norm. Throughout our history, Luxembourg has acted as a bridge builder. Our stable political system and the international role of our Grand Duke reflect continuity, reliability, and mutual respect. Values that are especially important in uncertain times. In trade, we must continue diversifying our partnership with countries that share our vision. This is a key part of our foreign economic policy. We should also not forget that we should not every meeting look who is the next enemy, but who is the next partner. And as I sometimes say, as foreign trade minister, I'm also Luxembourg's Reisender. to promote Luxembourg abroad. Over the past year, we have been able to establish new economic ties beyond Europe with Malaysia, Egypt, India and Canada, for example, while further strengthening our partnership with the United States and Japan. The Expo 25 in Osaka served as an important event to show that at a time when many countries are turning inward and adopting protectionist policies, it is more important than ever for Luxembourg to demonstrate its openness, its strengths, and what we can offer to the world. And that was not only Grand Prix Culture and Saucisse. They were very famous, but we were able to show to Luxembourg, to the world, what Luxembourg is. At the same time, Europe is facing another challenge from within, the rise of populism. Populists offer simple answers to very complex issues. And so it is the big difference between them and me. Usually as a Democrat, you have very long answers to the easiest questions. And populists have the shortest answer to the most complicated questions. But try to realize what sometimes they're telling you, just what you want to hear. And the challenges that we face today require thoughtful, detailed and responsible solutions. Democracy may not always be fast or easy, but it's still the most powerful way to face challenges and shape our shared future. Security is also becoming more important. Luxembourg is increasing its effort and commitment to contributing more to NATO. And believe me, when I started politics, I never thought I would defend it, but we need it. We need also to think about return on invest, to be very honest. We should not be more stupid than others. We must use our resources wisely, support innovation and build partnerships to strengthen our defense industry together. In this context, it is essential to enhance cooperation between Europe's defense capabilities, avoid duplication and ensure that we work as efficiently as possible. It is not exaggeration to say that we are standing at several critical turning points. In the face of uncertainty and crisis, we must remain true to our values, work together and continue to defend democracy, peace and the fair global system. Luxembourg will continue to stand up for these principles and values. I wish you a very productive exchange during this symposium and all the best.
Charismatic as always, probably the only person who can infuse Grand Prix into a diplomatic conversation. Our next speaker, Tariq Yazdani, one of my favorite speakers in Luxembourg. He has been a very reliable partner for CFA Society of Luxembourg, one of our most insightful speakers. Every time we bring him to talk to us, we run out of chairs, we run out of time. Our members are like, let's forget about the networking caucus, let's continue this discussion. And I'm really glad that we can share his excellence with all of you today. I know that I might be stepping boundaries a little bit because he works for PwC, but as CFA Society of Luxembourg, I feel like we also have a claim to him in a certain respect. Darish's sessions are consistently amongst the highest rated sessions for CFA Society of Luxembourg because he doesn't just present data, he challenges assumptions, he sparks debate, and he helps us see the forces that shape markets with greater clarity. With that said, Darish, welcome, and thank you for doing this for us. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Prosh. No pressure, right?
Exactly.
Great. So I'm here to set the scene, right? It's I don't know if you have ever been to the TV shows. There's a warm-up guy, you know, he entertains everybody before the main people come in. So I'm just a warm-up guy, yeah? And I have 10 minutes, so that shows you already. I'll try to keep it short, and Prosh, please, although there's a timer, you know I talk a lot, so you will kick me once my time is over. Setting the scene, and Bettel already pointed out to some of the points. Here what I have brought for you is some of the risks that are there on the horizon, and I would love to bring some positive news, right? Global trade, everybody's happy, we are all holding hands and we are happy. This is not the type of geopolitical and macroeconomic environment we are in. There are large number of risks that hopefully won't materialize. Here I have mapped for you the likelihood and the level of impact of some of the geopolitical and macroeconomic risks that we see from research that the world is currently facing. And given the time, I'm not going to go through all of them. Let me see if there is a pointer and I can point. Yeah, there. So I'm just going to go through the top ones. So here you can see the level of impact. So if they materialize, what that is. So let's look at it. Number 5 is global debt crisis. So, till 2022, money was cheap, right? What was the interest rate at that time? Around about nil, slightly above nil, right? What is it when money is cheap? What do? Take money and spend, right? It's cheap. So why not take on money and spend it? So what did the corporates and the sovereigns do? Put on debt, right? You know debt to GDP ratios, right? So let's take the 5 largest economies of Europe. So UK, Spain, Germany, Italy, and France. Who do you think has the lowest debt to GDP ratio?
Germany.
How many Germans? Ah, there you go, yeah. Yeah. Who comes next? UK, France, Spain, or Italy? UK. Any English here? Yeah, a few. After that? Or Spanish friends? No Spanish? Oh yeah, there you go. And I'm sure the French here, right? Can you imagine France being behind Spain from a debt to GDP ratio, right? And who tops it? Italians? Come on, don't be afraid. 1. There you go. Be proud. Why is it important? Why is it, from an economic point of view, you can say, well, we can print money, right? We can keep on printing money. Not an issue, right? Who thinks it's an issue? Any English people? There was somebody from UK, I saw 2 hands raising, right? Who was your shortest prime minister? You know why she was the shortest prime minister? The markets defined that she's the shortest prime minister. She was giving a speech called the mini budget, as far as I can remember. Basically, the key message was, we are going to spend more and we are going to decrease interest rates. As she was speaking, the UK gilt started in a free fall, so that the Bank of England had to intervene in order to save the pension funds in the UK. Okay? So, you can print money, there is no issue. As long as investors trust that you will pay them back. In the moment they lose that trust, it's a fire sale. It's a clear fire sale. You don't have months to adapt. These are hours and days. Within that you have to adapt. So clearly the debt crisis, if you are in private debt, you have already heard 1 or 2 blow-ups in the US, 3-color, right? Being rated A, which reminded me of the global financial crisis. So clearly, we partied. We partied from 2009 to 2022, right? And now some of us are waking up with a very bad headache, right? You have to pay the price at a certain point in time. The next one, number 7, Fed independence. You know that the current Fed chair is going to be changed in March. Anybody knows who is the favorite? Hassett. Kevin Hassett. And who is he close to? He's a Trump pleaser. Okay? It is basically what is going to happen. We know if he becomes the Fed chair, we are going to see a loose monetary policy. Right? It is like you give a firefighter a lighter in the hand. Right? In the front, he's increasing the liquidity. At the back, reinflation. So we will call it the reinflationary Fed. Okay? So, and clearly, there is an important point on it. Oh, wait, any Turkish people here? Ah, good. Sorry for that, but I will take you as an example. Just to give you an example of what happens, I like to have real world examples, right? We know that the Central Bank of Turkey a few years ago, the chair of the Federal Bank of Turkey was the son-in-law of the president, right? Is it correct? Please correct me if I'm wrong. What happened? Low interest rate, high inflation, devaluation of the lira, okay? The economy going down. To the point that it was forced that he was taken off and an ex-Goldman Sachs lady was put in who put on interest rates at 25%. The issue is that if that independence is challenged, and especially for the US, the markets will react strongly and most probably negatively. The 4 and 2 are geopolitical in nature. I'm just looking at the level of impact. Oh, I already have 2 minutes and another 4 slides to go, yeah? So, there you go, Prash, told you. The escalation of Russia-NATO war, I don't have to explain it. If really NATO gets into that war, it has an impact, especially across the globe, as well as if the tensions between China and Taiwan increase, that will have a global impact. Okay? Let's move on. Now, let's take a step back, guys. Let's take a step back, and here are 4 theses I will give you. You might agree or you might disagree with that, and I'm fine with it, right? We are not talking about the day-to-day what's going to happen next year. But what is on the horizon? Number 1, we are moving from a globalization to a world of blocks. And I have given this most simplified block here, okay? This is the most simplified, and you can have various scenarios, and we can play around with various scenarios of those blocks. You see, the point around Trump hitting on Europe and hitting on allies is not an issue. The issue is you lose trust, right? Now, those strategists who are sitting in those countries, in the governments, even if the next one is pro-Europe, people will start thinking, we need an alternative. We need something else. Who will guarantee that there won't be another Trump administration 20 years down the road? I need an alternative to go for it. So we are seeing more and more the BRICS Plus forming, okay? You have Europe, who trusted US for a long time, and now is in no man's land, its own bloc. And then you have US with some of its allies. I have put some of the points around, what percentage of GDP is there, how much of the world's rare earth is it being controlled, right? If you look at BRICS, or especially at China, it's more of a hostage situation. They control most of the rare earth, right? Everybody knows what rare earth is used for, right? So anything you are using currently on electronics, without that rare earth, you won't have it, yeah? By the way, when the escalation between the trade between China and US went up, one of the parts that China did was to have controls on rare earth. And immediately the US administration sent a delegation to negotiate on that, because you require it, yeah? And as you can see, 77% of world's rare earth production is controlled by the BRICS Plus nations. Look at Europe. 22.5% of the world GDP, 1% of rare earth, yeah? It's like driving a Ferrari without any gas. Yeah? And the gas is the rare earth you require. But again, let's just, Prash, you will give me 1 or 2 minutes more, yeah? Sorry for that, yeah? On that. But again, if you look back into times of the Cold War between the Western world and Russia, those blocks were made because of some shared values, right? The Western world, democracy, the Russia bloc, mostly communism, correct? Right now, the BRICS nation, it's not really shared values if you look a bit deeper. It's just a conglomerate, right? So there is a question that you ask from a research perspective, will it be successful? There's another scenario. I call it the Tinderization of geopolitics, right? What does that mean? Basically, you are transactional, right? Today, I want to do, let's say, trade. I go on Tinder, I swipe left or right for which country I want to play with, right? And next year, I will take another one. What does that mean? Your interests are just part of a temporary getting together and then breaking away and putting others together, okay? You have various blocks for different interests. That scenario, most probably, if the Western blocks break up, then that is one of the scenarios that could be, yeah? And I have dubbed it the Tinderization. By the way, I don't know how, in my days we used to go to bars and other places, so I don't know if you swipe right or left, yeah? AI will rewrite civilization. We talk a lot about AI, and we talk a lot about, you know, it will change the industries and everything. By the way, you know ChatGPT, right? OpenAI, DeepSeek. Everybody knows it. Anybody who doesn't know it? No. By the way, this is ChatGPT. Anybody knows what this is?
Model V4.
Exactly. The first one, right? That was industrialized on the belts.
The wrong color, but otherwise, yes.
Sorry for that, yeah? I just got it from Amazon. They didn't have the right color, yeah? This is ChatGPT. This is DeepSeek, guys. You know this one? The status symbol of Wall Street in the 80s, yeah? That wasn't a Ferrari. This was, you had to have this. This is currently DeepSeek. This is currently ChatGPT. Italians? Italians? Can you see it from there? A Lambo. From this to this, it's not going to take 70 years. We are talking about 1, maximum 2 decades. That's where AI is going to be. AI is redefining everything. It's not just industries. It is how you learn, how you decide. So that's how, and are we ready as a civilization? Are we ready as Luxembourg to adapt to this? This is one of the questions you need to ask yourselves. Are our school systems ready? Is our defense ready? All of that is having an impact, even the legal systems. You will have to question, if something goes wrong, will you sue the algorithm? Who will you sue? Right? And I'll just go on because I'm being shown 50 seconds. Economy, global trade, free trade, no frictions, right? I come from University of Chicago. No taxes, no nothing. It should be all free. No regulations, the best. Yeah? Economy is now a weapon. Being actively used. Being actively used. Tariffs. Again, tariffs, according to research, by 2027, a Bloomberg study is showing that it will cost the global GDP $2 trillion by end 2027. The current tariffs, yeah, if they don't go down. Sanctions, clearly. When was it used? Sanctions against Russia, correct? So clearly a weapon arsenal. It's a warfare. Economy is nowadays a warfare. It's not about trade anymore. It is, but still being used as a warfare. Technology. Clearly, there is the AI haves and have-nots. The technology haves and have-nots. Technology will decide who is going to win this race 10, 20 years down the road. As well as, and we talked about commodities and energy, rare earth. Who controls that? How will that be traded? What brings us that to? I'm 1 minute over time. Okay, that's fine. The great reallocation. I call it the great reallocation. Why that? Capital will be reallocated depending upon how the geopolitical blocks build up, depending upon where growth will be, depending upon where you will have to invest from an AI technology perspective. Geopolitical power, we talked about that reallocation. Supply chains. It was all about producing cheaply. Now, it is more strategic in nature. So, supply chains after COVID, after all the geopolitical upheavals, is clearly being redefined and reallocated. And last but not least, talent. What will happen to talent? Will the young guys still sit here in offices 12 hours a day and work? Questionable, right? With technology, wherever they want, most probably. How are you going to fight for those talents? Guess what? Everybody wants now somebody who knows AI, right? I think Facebook was offering what? Some huge packages of 100 millions to those AI top talents. You are no longer going to be fighting for the MBAs of this world, right? And I mean, I belong to one of those. Most probably I should have gone to MIT. Yeah? How are you going to fight for that talent when Facebook and Google are going to fight for the same talent? It's no longer your immediate competition. Your competition for talent is now everyone. With this, I stop here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dariush, for framing the global landscape with such clarity and precision. As always, a masterclass in connecting data to reality. On screen shortly, we will put a QR code. There it is. If you have any questions for Dariush, please put it on there. In the Q&A session, Dariush will be back, so we can continue this discussion then. Every year, Dariush gives us at least an hour and a half, once or twice a year at the Xavier Society of Luxembourg. And it's such a tender box of debate and conversation. You guys should come join us. Sorry about the clickbait, but just wanted to highlight how great the speaker he's always been for us. So thank you, Dariush. We will now transition from the macro forces that are impacting our world to the concrete implications for Luxembourg's businesses. To facilitate this, we'll have our panelists. We're joined with three leaders who sit at the intersection of industry, law, and corporate strategy. Each of them are actively shaping Luxembourg's corporate landscape, and leading corporates that are directly impacted by the geopolitical environment. Please help me in welcoming Laura Rossi, partner at Deckard, who specializes in regulation and advises firms navigating an increasingly complex legal and policy environment. Please also help me welcome Sudhakar Shivaji, the Deputy CEO of Aperam, leading one of Europe's major industrial players through trade tensions, supply chain reconfiguration, and the energy transition. Please also help me welcome Gerard Kops, the industry and services leader at PwC Luxembourg, working closely with companies across sectors on strategy, risk, and operational resilience in a fragmented global system. Welcome, guys. Please also welcome our co-moderator for the evening, Maria Pavelek. Maria is a seasoned lawyer and an independent director. She's also the General Secretary of the INSEAD Alumni Association of Luxembourg. She makes sure every event has a plan and a punchline, from pub quizzes to raising funds for INSEAD, social drinks to moderating panel discussions. You can do it all. Thank you, Maria.
Great. Thank you for having me here today, Prash. I went to last year's event, which was incredible. And for those of us who are here would have heard Pierre Garmagna say how geopolitical risk has really become part of the business landscape and an everyday part of business strategy. So in this first segment of our panel, we're going to talk about global shifts and business impact. So my first question is to Laura. Laura, over the past year, can you tell us which global geopolitical event have you seen have the biggest impact on your firm and then also your clients, and how have you dealt with that?
Thank you. So, good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me here. So, I think two key events that have been dragging on for a few months now. So, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, obviously, and then there's also the trade tensions, let's call it like that, between the US and most of the rest of the world as well. So, from an I'm going to look at that more based on my day-to-day, which is legal. And so we went from more, let's say, straightforward structurings and questions from client and setting up the funds, basically just proceeding on our day-to-day that we do, as we do in Luxembourg, to people asking us, what are we going to do with all of this? And so we had to shift our capacity and also analysis and also gain, let's say, new knowledge on what all of those components, be it on the trade side, but also on the tension side and potential sanctions, international sanctions and so forth. So who's allowed to participate on a deal? Are there any particular sanctions that have to be taken into consideration when structuring and so forth? So we went from what we knew to a new environment, and that created, let's say, a new also momentum and allowed us to also gain new knowledge and also broaden our knowledge generally and how we advise clients on it.
Thank you, Laura. Gerard, can I build upon that with you? We heard Dariush talk about how there's increasing fragmentation, especially in the regulatory phase across the US, across EU, across the BRICS countries. How are we doing in Luxembourg? Do you feel like Luxembourgish firms are adapting quickly enough? Or do you feel like they're underestimating the long-term cost and the complexity?
So, is everybody ready? The answer is no. It's extremely complicated today to navigate the geopolitical shifts on one hand and the regulatory shifts. And those who dream that after the war in Ukraine we will be back to stability, I think there is one certainty in the world, that stability will no longer be there. We will have volatility, we will have instability, and every crisis will be replaced by another one. And that can be virus, that can be economic, that can be war, that can be hybrid war, that can be everything. When we look at particularly Europe and Luxembourg, and I would like to make the mix of Europe and Luxembourg, we have been very much focused on sustainability, on regulation, on many topics that are important. High standards are important, and we should not give up on that. But of course, you cannot build sustainability on what we would say an economic graveyard. And if on top of that you have two other blocks, US on one hand, and you have the BRICS, that go for competitiveness, that go for rare earth, as also was being mentioned, and Europe is only focusing on the regulation and the complexity, etc. Well, of course, we have a risk of economic slowdown, lower GDP growth rates, and that is what we see. So, let's say on a consistent basis, we have low, let's say, growth rates. And so preparing for all the regulation, but also the regulation shift. Now Europe comes with Omnibus, tries to simplify, is doing others. How to prepare for all of that, what are the deadlines, what are the system implications, etc. I think everybody is doing their best, but then the question is, how to find the resources, the experts, etc., to deal with it internally is almost impossible today. So outsourcing is becoming much more remote of companies to deal with the complexity that is out there. But also on the other hand is, let's say, how as a company, and I will get back to that in the second stage and later on, is how to prepare for this instability, how to manage as a region, how to manage as a country, how to manage as a firm. And that, I think, should be on the highest agenda of every decision maker. Again, regional, country, and company.
Thank you very much. So can I build on that? We heard Darius talk about tariffs and the impact on the world. And we know that there is general instability when it comes to trade relations, trade tensions and things on those lines. For the industrial companies, for your area of expertise, like how do you see this affecting sourcing, supply contracts, and long-term capital allocation?
Thanks, Prash. First of all, if I have 30 seconds, thanks to you and to Jill Vanderwijn from PwC and all the smart people here who invited us for this discussion. Thank you. And also, as a father of young girls and an engineer, shout out to the women in STEM who are here. Welcome to catch up with me after the break. Everyone, not just the women in STEM. That's a key question, because fundamentally I think what's changed over the last 16 months, I should say, is that we've seen the world go from this global trade flow situation, which was post-COVID boom, everyone. It's gone to more localized economies, right? So, and Darius has demonstrated that beautifully. But for us, in terms of sourcing or supply contracts, I should say it's a little bit of a cheat answer, because 84% of our businesses are local supply chains. We built that post-COVID. So in Europe, we source 90% of our raw materials from Europe, because we are one of the world's largest recyclers. In Brazil, we source local raw materials. So the only business where we actually supply across the world is our alloys business, but it's a global business. And there people are. So it's a conscious decision to build supply chains and grow in that direction. So we benefited from that. But fundamentally, we will take a break from this globalization. And the companies, we try to survive by building local supply chains and benefiting from it.
Thank you. So we've taken sort of the zoom out and talked about the global situation. Let's come in a little bit more globally. Luxembourg, being a small country, has a good reputation for also being resilient. But some of the very features that it has that allow its resilience, like its interconnectivity, can also present some challenges. Can you talk about some of the challenges that you see as being the biggest ones for Luxembourg, and then some of its strengths as well?
Yes, no, that's a very important question, because Mr. Bettel mentioned that, which is that Luxembourg's reputation has been built on building bridges. But then when people no longer want to build bridges and raise walls around each other, I think it becomes a little bit of a difficult situation. But I draw inspiration from a few hundred years ago. Sorry to be a bit, nostalgic. But, Constantinople, Istanbul, Baghdad, these were cities which flourished even back then when there was trade, which was restricted, because they were powerhouses of arbitrage of knowledge and goods. So what is being stopped here is the arbitrage of goods across borders. So knowledge is still something to attract the best and brightest people. I think there is an opportunity for Luxembourg there, especially because of its existing connections across the world. Let's take concrete examples. We spoke about your role in Amazon before, right? So, and I think that these global companies and corporates still need these landing points in different continents. And Luxembourg could serve to connect Europe to the rest of the world. And I see a promising situation there, irrespective of how the tariff situation is.
Can I pick that up with you, Laura? I want to leverage your unique vantage point, through Deckard. Are you seeing any movement? What do you see with Luxembourg's financial and professional services firms? How they're reassessing their risk portfolios, or are they making any changes in light of the geopolitical uncertainty and market volatility?
We've seen some, let's say, revisions, and they're more on their toes, so the market is more active in scrutinizing, keeping an eye on what they have in their portfolios generally, but also the regions where they invest, the type of investments that they make. So I would say it centralizes around 3 points mainly, which is the risk diversification of the portfolios generally that they look at very closely. The other one is obviously building in also technology that's there to be able to improve and speed up certain processes that they have internally. And then what we also see is that it has had, I would say, a positive development also in terms of the relationship with the regulator, the communication that's being done, also the guidance that's being provided, and it's really, let's say, it goes hand in hand between professionals in the legal world and also with the regulator when we exchange on that. And the benefit that we get out of this is that the Luxembourg financial sector and the companies and funds world has benefited from it because it's created an expanded framework that I think is building on what Luxembourg was already offering for all of these years, which was stability and a certain clarity, and now is being upgraded as the days go and as the crises develop, I would say.
Thank you, Laura. And so now we sort of shift into talking a little bit about action. And Gerard, you mentioned regulation before. Can you talk a little bit about Luxembourg and what it should be preparing for in terms of policy and legal developments as we go into 2026?
Yeah, so as a first point I want to make that, and I said it before, but high standards, good regulation and competitiveness are not mutually exclusive. I think Europe has a brand for high standards as well as for regulation, but on that part I do think we need to be smarter and we need to be more proportionate. So to make sure that business can run, business can grow. So that is one thing, but that is not, let's say, the key point of the topic that I want to bring. If I have to give one clear recommendation to Luxembourg as well as to Europe, is to work on the competitiveness agenda. I really see that for companies, and that can be big companies, that can be funds industry, that can be startups, scale-ups, to thrive, you need to be focused on your growth, on your innovation, on your products, on your distribution, on your go-to-market. But when you want to run a business in Europe, you have to spend your first 5 million euro in understanding the regulation. That's not even applying the regulation, but in understanding the regulation. And I think there is a unique opportunity for Luxembourg to go back to his historic agenda. Robert Schuman was Luxembourg. He created Europe. We have had Jacques Delors, but we also have Juncker in more from a country perspective than a Euro perspective. But he was building a very competitive Luxembourg, a smart country, a leader in Europe, although we are very small, and I think we can go back there. Let's try to build a coalition of the pro-growth, of the pro, let's say, strong Europe, collective Europe, common interest, but build back, let's say, a Europe that's working on innovation, on really, let's say, on new businesses, on not regulation to limit our opportunities, but to grow. And I think also for companies, that's the same. We have become a bit complacent. And I do think if we want to be ready to navigate the complexity, geopolitical shifts, economic volatility, we need to be light boats that can really sail difficult waters. And that is where we all need to prepare for. AI is coming. How does our talent pool look like? Also, let's say, how is your profitability? How is your cash flow as a country? I was looking at it from a Luxembourg perspective because we want to go into more policy making. Luxembourg had 60% GDP growth over the last 10 years, nominal. Luxembourg public spending went up 100% over that same period. To give you an example, Ireland has 100% GDP growth nominal over the last 10 years. Its expense policy is 60% only over the last 10 years. So they have budget surplus and they can start working on that. Luxembourg should go back to being that smart country in Europe being a leader, but also therefore you need to work on your fiscal policy, including your spending, to build capacity for effectiveness.
Thank you, Sharon. That's very insightful. And staying with the practical steps, Laura, can I hand it back to you? If I was your client, what would you be telling me is some of the steps I can be taking to build resilience in this geopolitical climate?
Well, make sure, let's say, you've upgraded from a technological perspective, clearly, to factor in AI and what have you, technology that helps you to monitor in a faster way your portfolio, the performance and calculations, because it will also help you to reduce costs overall, I would say, even if the systems cost a lot of money. And I think that that ties into what my co-panelist also said, to the competitiveness, and which obviously starts with, let's say, the government, but also goes all the way down to each and every player, and where we all need to work together and come up with systems that will help. So that was point one, and I think the second one, to invest in also the workforce, the people that we work with, and that are, let's say, that are the essence of the financial sector in Luxembourg, and make sure that there's let's say, the most strength there, and the overall innovation also, keeping your head in the game by looking into which new products are being launched, what are the opportunities there. And so I think that's, let's say, for a player in the market at the moment, some of the key points. In addition to that, also don't underestimate and keep an eye on regulations and guidance that the regulator is issuing.
So can I come back to you? I want to build upon Gerard's point on the need for innovation and the juxtaposition against regulation that we have in Europe. Energy costs, carbon pricing, sustainability drivers, these are becoming strategic variables. So how does an industry leader like you strike the balance between competitiveness and compliance with your then?
See, compliance is basically how you translate what Darius called as value systems into real practice, right? And we have to do that because fundamentally those three topics you've spoken about is something which is not going to save Germany, Europe, Eurasia, China, United States. It's going to save the earth. So at the core of it, compliance is for us non-negotiable. And so that's not even something which comes up as a discussion inside our brand, right? Because fundamentally, this is how we translate as humans our value systems into business practices. Sometimes we overdo it as Europeans, I can say that, but I hope we find the right balance. And in terms of competitiveness, yes, it is a challenge. For us, there's two solutions inside Appran. And first one is the fact that we look at businesses as opportunities to benefit from these challenges. We've grown in recycling. We are the world's largest cultivator of forests for biocharcoal. We have 160,000 hectares. So our business models have diversified to take these costs and make them into opportunities, actually. So this is something, we've shifted 80% of our capital from investing in traditional businesses into businesses which look at these challenges and see them as opportunities. So that's for us one thing. And the second thing is that agility. And that's something which Gerard touched upon, is the fact that today you can switch off and on an entire steel mill in Belgium even 3 times a day, because we have a light system and there's somebody sitting looking at energy costs, and he can send a message and the operator can switch it off and on. So that's how I run the company. And yes, it is a challenge, but you cannot compromise on compliance to these things. So that's important. And the other part, if I have just 2 more seconds, which is that I look at these topics with a lot more optimism. Okay? So Darius, I'm going to give some optimism, right? Fundamentally, if you look at it, the cost of EV vehicles is dropping like crazy. China, Brazil and India are adopting carbon pricing. The ozone problem which we spoke about crazily 15 years ago is gone. It's closed because we have banned CFRs. So as an industry leader and as a human, I believe there is no dissent there because as humanity there are enough opportunities to solve these problems. And so I don't see the conflict. Yes, there will be volatility, as you said, but fundamentally I do not see a conflict at all. And long term, it is for the better of the humanity.
Very good. So strike a balance, continue to innovate, and do the best you can for humanity. Thank you. Well, this brings us to the rapid fire segment, the fun segment where we ask silly questions and try to see what lands and what we get. So can I stay with you and pose a weird question to you? If international relations were run like Eurovision, which country would Luxembourg give 12 points to this year?
So that's going to be a controversial answer because I see most of us here in this room are seeing it from a European Western perspective, but I give China 12 points. You want to know why?
Yes.
So the first things first is that I've always been impressed with China for the past 25 years since I started working with them. There's no reason to be afraid. It's just, and fundamentally they're doing what they are supposed to do. First thing, they implement their vision. They set out 7 years ago to actually become the world leader in EV vehicles. They've gotten there. So you want to vote for a candidate who's a proven performer. The second thing is they command the magnetism, power and the aura to even get United States to the talking table. Remember what Darius said? Actually, United States visited China to negotiate. Right? And the last one is actually something which they look at problems of tomorrow. Right? We all thought that China at some point of time would have the same inflation problems, higher personnel costs as Western economies. But they've come up with AI and they've come up with robotics. Today, 20% of Chinese factories on scale are run as dark factories. So there is no cost factor involved there at all in endless productivity. So that's something for me as an industry leader to be inspired from. So I would rather vote for somebody who inspires me, and that's China.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for the articulate answers, really. Laura, can I come to you? You know, we see all these trends from a geopolitical perspective, tariffs and whatnot. What historical trend do you think future historians will make fun of us for?
Probably how proud we are currently of the status of AI, tying into what was said earlier on, going from the Ford to the Lamborghini, and depending on what speed they'll do that, and looking at how much we are happy to have what we have, and how little and how inefficient that will look in a very, very short amount of time.
Okay, thank you. Sure, I'm going to come to you now. I know you're working for PwC, but if you could swap roles with any world leader, who would that be?
Well, there is two, or three. If I go historic, I think let's go for Schuman or Jacques Delors, because that is what Europe needs. As somebody really, let's say, building a strong Europe again, and focusing also on the economic agenda. I must say, and you can love and you can hate, but the way of visionary policy that you see, and you mentioned China, see, you can say a lot of negative things about it, but he is setting strategy, the country is transforming, is innovating, as you also mentioned, and let's say the technology evolution that is there is, let's say, it is a smart country, a sandbox, you could say, and that is what I would also recommend for Luxembourg, because become a sandbox of innovation, and missing a real European person who can try to play that role. And if we have one in the future, that would be great, because I think that can bring Europe back on track, but I don't find the personality in Europe. Maybe Draghi is closest to that, and then everybody to execute on the agenda.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gerard. And I think it would be a huge shame to let our audience go without harnessing the knowledge with some benefit for the audience. So on behalf of the audience, I have a question for the entire panel, the same one. So looking ahead for 2026 and beyond, what is the one step you think the audience can take to turn geopolitical challenges into opportunities?
Well, I would say reinvent and transform. We need, volatility is there, and so as a company, as a country, we need to be extremely agile. And so reinventing ourselves and really transforming to be ready for tomorrow, because everything will go so fast, is probably, let's say, the critical recommendation I would give.
Yeah, I agree with that. So adaptability, forward thinking, and to build on efficiency, to just stay on your toes and keep going. So don't stop.
So from my side, I'm going to say that whatever you built your job, your career on, forget that it's going to exist. No, I'm not joking, and I'm not doing it for dramatic effect. Forget that it's going to exist. If you're not a welder or an electrician, that skill set is going to be replaced by technology. And so upskill yourselves and learn to play in that world. And that is the only thing. So there's been a couple of interesting words written on AI and you've spoken about it. So learn to work with AI the way you learn to work with humans in your kindergarten. That's the one skill.
Thank you.
Super. Well, let's have a big round of applause for the panelists. And a round of applause for Maria for moderating the discussion. Thank you very much, Maria. Well, I hope you guys have scanned the QR code and sent us our questions, because now it's time for the Q&A session. Please help me welcome Yongi, who will be leading the Q&A session. She's received all your questions. She's curated them for our panelists. Yongi, who's the director at PwC, was a big part of last year's symposium. More importantly, she's also a regular member of the CFA Society of Luxembourg. Yongi, welcome on stage. Can I also ask Dario to come back? He said a lot of things. Now it's time to be grilled.
Thank you for having me here, and thank you to our panelists for this very rich and truly forward-looking discussion. And our conversation continues. I invite you to scan the QR code to share your questions with us. While our audience is still, let's say, formulating their ideas, I will take the opportunity to ask the first question to keep the momentum. Gira, you mentioned earlier that the risk and volatility will always be there. You made a call for a mindset shift and an action with a sense of urgency. And could you please specify one or two specific shifts in thinking or policy priorities which could potentially improve Luxembourg's competitiveness?
Yeah, I think mindset change. Mindset change meaning that, and I'm also an optimist, we need to be much more entrepreneurial as a country. And we do not need to let us dictate what should be the future of Europe or what should be the future of Luxembourg. Let's have our own destiny in our hands. And I think others will follow when they see the success. And that is why I would really say, let's invent a country that is going to innovate, that is going to foster that success is something positive. Because in Europe, success is not always something positive. We see somebody successful and we try to kill the person or we try to kill the initiative, etc. So really make a sandbox for, we have a super financial services industry, we have an asset management industry, we have multicultural, we have a good budgetary situation. So in fact, we have the levers to be successful, and now it's just the courage to say, we go and lead, even if public understanding of that will come slowly, but today we just need to act on it. And we know AI is there, let's be a first mover on adoption. But even tax competitiveness, it was part of our agenda. I always say Luxembourg doesn't have a beach, doesn't have a sun, doesn't have, let's say, people come here because of the professional opportunities that were created. And companies came here because of the opportunities that were created. The same for the financial services system. And I do think we should build that again. Everybody who's here is here for a purpose, not because the sun is shining that much in Luxembourg. So.
Thank you. I can echo on that one after 10 years in Luxembourg. And Darish, you mentioned earlier that AI is redefining everything. And with this immense focus on AI, and its potential of reshaping the future business, where do you see the biggest immediate gap in AI readiness for Luxembourg and its business?
I'll take it even European-wide, right? And if I go back to my example of rewriting the civilization, then the role of Luxembourg is currently writing the terms and conditions. Yeah, that's how far we are. We were the first to regulate, by the way, AI, right? So when US was sitting there doing open AI, ChatGPT, China was doing DeepSeek, we were busy formulating the regulation for AI. So the readiness, I think we have a long way to go, to be very frank, right? As the speaker said, we are still at the start. And don't get me wrong, that entrepreneurial spirit, right? All the AI firms that are out there in the US, a lot of them are Europeans who migrate to the US because they have better opportunities. Why can't we keep them in Europe?
And why?
Because we miss the entrepreneurial mindset. If somebody fails in Europe, he's brand marked, right? Will the bank give him another credit? Not really. Yeah? The US mindset is venture capitalism. You fail, they think you have learned. You can again start up. Yeah? Capital is available. I mean, where do most Europeans invest? In banks. Deposits. Right? How many Germans are there? Again? The country of savings, yeah? Or savings are a multiple of the US. Are a multiple of the US. They sit in banks. If we can, and that is the Savings and Investments Union, if we can open that up, think about how much we could develop from an economical perspective.
And actually, I have a question from the audience, which is echoing to what you are mentioning, that startups often leave Luxembourg due to high operating costs and relatively high regulation expense. And how does this align with Luxembourg's ambition to position itself as an innovation hub? How do you see this disparity should be reconciled?
So the fundamental point is that I think to encourage that entrepreneurial spirit or the spirit of success, which Gerard and Darius have spoken about, it means you have to accept failures, right? And sometimes I think it is easy for us to sit in the grand hall and say that we need to get there, but if you have built your history and your credentials by regulating, by creating an avenue for an industry where basically financial services, for example, over a period of time, I think it takes a while to move to this startup economy, right? Luxembourg has the largest concentration of space-related startups, for example. They're not yet big, but I hope definitely they'll get big. So there is going to be a lot of change, I'm sure. We worked a lot with some of the Luxembourgish entities. We do have a venture fund inside APRAN, which we work. The head of the venture fund is there, Benoit Scholtesen. If you guys want money and want startup ideas to work with APRAM in its incubation center, please reach out. So yes, there is a way to go, but the mentality doesn't happen overnight. And that's because we have grown up with, in Luxembourg with regulation. And I'll give you an upside, right? Coming from Germany, I can tell you that actually Luxembourg is much more liberal how it deals with startups compared to Germany. So there's a positive side to things too. Not a big positive.
Depending on the benchmark.
Yeah, not a big positive, but it is going to turn around, and I do believe that this entrepreneurial spirit, which translated and transferred and transformed a farmland into a buzz of financial service industry, is going to help us take the next step as well. So,
Just to add on to Zulkar, how many of you are from financial services industries? Okay, how many of you think regulations is a burden? Let me tell you one thing, okay? And I'm from the financial services, right? Basically, my professional, born in the financial services, and most probably will retire in the financial services. Let's take a moment to thank the regulators. You know why? Because they built so high walls around this industry that the Apples and the Googles of this world did not attack this industry. Okay? It's not because they don't want to, they just hate regulations. So yes, they are a burden, I agree with you. But at the same time, they have been your protectors. Because otherwise, all those high technology firms would have reshaped this industry as we know it as of today. So, next time you see the regulator, maybe for once, give him a handshake and say thank you to them.
So, and Darius has inspired me to say another topic which is important to understand, because I just came out of a meeting complaining about regulations as an industry guy. That is important for me to keep the balance, to keep Europe competitive. But there's something else. I lived in the United States during the GFC, the global financial crisis. The regulators are the ones which kept basically what happened in the US, which is 40% of the middle and lower class lose their life savings happen. So that's how we translate, and I again go back to my message, that's how we translate our values into actual practice, and so we need to balance that.
Interesting. I think it all comes to how you strike the balance between regulation and remain competitiveness and relevance in the landscape. And Laura, you have highlighted in the panel discussion the importance of talent and make sure you have the right people. And let's assume if by 2026, AI can handle 80% regulatory fragmentation and compliance, what skills or values should our professionals be cultivating today as human skills?
Well, I think that is one of the key questions around with AI, obviously. And I'll give a very specific example on that, which is that despite all the AI that we have and the level of the AI that we have, it hasn't managed to take away the legal confirmation that is being asked regularly by the players, whether it's banks, whether it's investors also. And it gives them a certain comfort to proceed, and the higher the amount, it seems to be giving them still some additional level of assurance as to what they've either invested in or the entity to which they've lent money on, or if they invest cross-border, also the seller or the purchaser they're working with. And it's, whether we want it or not, when you work with a law firm and with the lawyers that will adapt their knowledge based on the types of questions that are being asked, but also have various teams that are in charge, or specialists that are in charge of addressing the various questions, it's not, at least not at this stage. Maybe it will happen one day, like we said, you know, we go from the T model to the Lamborghini. Who knows what will be? Maybe we'll all be cancelled and we'll all be upgrading ourselves. Maybe one day I'll be working as a mechanic or a plumber. Who knows? You know, an electrician, and then so be it, right? But it's the confirmation that you get from the lawyers and the reliance on that confirmation and the security it gives you on the deal, on the structuring. And that AI is not giving you, because if you look at each and every single system that's currently being offered, there's always a last line, whether it's a disclaimer that opens at the very beginning or at the end of an answer. AI makes mistakes. Lawyers also can make mistakes. I'm not saying, you know, it's not a fail-safe, but you have actionable alternatives then, as soon as you fall into that situation. Who are you gonna sue? And I think that was the point that was made. Are you gonna sue ChatGPT? Are you gonna sue whoever it is, your computer? So we'll see where it takes us, but I'm sure we're gonna see a very interesting development there over time.
So we fly while building the plane. Darish, I have a question for you. You mentioned the blogs earlier in your presentation. And which blog do you think has more competitive advantage over the horizon? And there's a tougher one from different audience, from different people from the audience. If Europe has to choose side, should it be more aligned with the US or Asia?
Okay, good question, definitely. Who has the competitive advantage? I think for a long time it was US. And let me explain why. Because it was an open economy. You could come there. It used to attract the brightest talents, right? From everywhere in the world. It wasn't, Europe wasn't, US didn't build up its technology. If you look at how many migrants are in the Silicon Valley, from Europe, from Asia, everywhere. Who is Google's CEO? Is he European? Indian, right? So that attraction was making the competitive edge. It didn't matter you came from Africa, from Asia, from Europe, from wherever in this world. If you were able to bring added value, to bring innovation, America had open doors, okay? And that was one of its key competitive advantages. But when I look at right now what is happening, that is for US and the Americans here. No Americans? Don't be afraid, come on. We can make a few jokes. That competitiveness is being lost. But it's an opportunity for Europe right now. You know, there are a lot of Harvard professors who are looking at US right now and looking, you know, do I still need to be here? Yeah? There are a lot of others. And if Europe could open that, if Europe could open its doors and have that attractiveness, but bring that attractiveness from a regulatory perspective, from a business perspective, from a venture capital perspective, I think we could attract a lot. So in that sense, currently, I would say it is tilting towards mostly China, the BRICS plus, okay? And especially China, I fully agree with you. 2012 worked on a strategic project for a country. Clearly, they have a 20-year vision. Their plans are not looking at if I'm going to be elected the next 4 terms. So clearly, they have an advantage. Where should Europe side with? A good question.
Or we can leave this question to the networking cocktail.
Well, you know, it's a trade-off. I'm not shy of questions. It's politically correct or incorrect. Look, there is a trade-off. If you're looking at what is the future, what will be the future, most probably from a research economic perspective, clearly China is in the growth mode, is in the set mode, right? But if you are going to side with China, you will have to have a trade-off. We know that life is full of trade-offs. Can you then overlook that their internal politics is not Europe's business? Be it human rights, be it Greater China. Can you handle that? For the Germans, man kann nicht gleichzeitig Fisch und Fleisch sein, oder? Right? You cannot have the cake and the icing on the piece of cake. So the politicians, the policymakers will have to decide. There are trade-offs. And we have seen it now even for the US, which was our ally, there is a trade-off. So those trade-offs will need to be thought about. You will have to give something to take something. That would be my answer.
I would love to have Sud's view.
In my question, I look at this one a little factually, right? For example, I do believe that there is a certain view, and first thing, we look at things, and I'm going to zoom out really a lot. We look at things in such short spans, right? If you look at the BRICS part, they used to have 40% of the world trade as recent as 1812. And since 1812 that has changed, so we have that view. So I think the world is going to this natural order of things. Having said that, the trade-offs which Darius referred to is that we were betting on the United States for our security apparatus. So let's call it the Ukraine conflict when Russia took over Ukraine and the sanctions that happened. That has caught us in, and I'm talking only the Western European economies, it has cost us 1 trillion. Just the rise of energy costs. Nobody talks about that. And this is key. Nobody looks at it and says, it has costed Europe 1 trillion. And today Europe is not even at the negotiating table to solve that crisis. So, if you ask me to be an anchor separate in a multilateral world, we are, as Europe, the third largest economy in terms of consuming population. Even larger than the United States. So after China, India, Europe is the largest. So I think if you ask me that question, Yomi, I would say side with Europe, because fundamentally that's a key role in a multilateral world. And so that's my answer.
And then you don't have to choose. No? Because if you're a real bloc, you can have partners on all sides, rather than be independent.
And this is something I always tell people inside APRAN as well. The best bet is the bet you place on yourself.
To be self-sustainable will be the answer. Thank you, Sud. And thank you all for sharing your insights. I know we are running a bit out of time. Before I give the floor back to Prash for his closing remark, one last burning question. If you could make a wish to the Santa Claus, what that would be?
End the war.
Yeah, I think bring back the stability.
So I would say, I'll take on it and say end all wars. There are 3 primary zones of conflict today in the world, and the human cost of it is basically unimaginable. So I would say end all these 3 major regions of conflict, and that would actually solve a lot of our economic issues right now, because the world is so obsessed with those 3 conflicts as already. On energy, on water scarcity, and on knowledge transfer. So these 3 wars are basically they may not have perfect solution, but if we solve these 3 conflicts, the 3 big conflict zones, and everyone knows which one I'm talking about, if we solve that, or maybe you don't, because you're thinking probably of the Ukraine, Russia part and the Middle East part. The 3rd conflict is something which we have unfortunately never cared about, which is the intra-sectal conflict happening in Africa, which is consuming the largest amount of resources. If we solve those 3 conflicts, that's my wish list.
So just to add on, because they have already wished everything, win the AI race as Europe, yeah? Because I think Europe would really be the best if we win that race, because we will handle it with the responsibility that goes with it.
With
Santa
the
Claus-
terms and conditions.
With the terms and conditions.
Good one, yeah. Santa Claus has his work cut out, you know. All right. What a great conversation. Thank you very much to our panelists. Great speeches. Great talk. Thank you also to our moderators, Yongi and Maria. You know, behind these kind of events, there's a lot of groundwork that takes place to put everything together. The organization, everything works so seamlessly, but the real humans were actually behind the scenes trying to put everything together. So big round of applause, big thank you to Eugenie, Delphine, David, and Charlie. You've done so many events at PwC, you guys are awesome. It's always been so smooth. Thank you very much. And of course, Kenny for supporting this event. Thank you also to you folks, to the alumni associations and the professional associations for supporting this, for being here, and for coming down and participating in this. The Luxembourg Mind was created to bring people together across institutions, backgrounds, viewpoints, and tonight was a very good example of this. As we continue to grow, we'd love to welcome more of you to this process. If you're interested in helping shape future events or contributing your talents behind the scenes, feel free to come speak to me after the event. We'd be delighted to have you involved. And with that, I think we can continue this discussion at the bar. I invite you to join us at the bar upstairs. Thank you very much.